Hello, and welcome to Town Meeting TV's coverage of Town Meeting Day 2024. This program we're bringing you in advance of voting on March 5th, Tuesday. Town Meeting TV hosts forums with candidates and about all the ballots and all of the items you'll see on your ballot coming up. This is why you don't read. Thanks. You can find us here where you're watching either on Comcast Channel 1087, Burlington Telecom Channel 17, or on youtube.com/townmeetingtv. If you are tuning in live, we welcome your questions here at 802-862-3966. So let's get started. We're here tonight with candidates for the Winooski School Board, and we have Isaiah Donaldson, Ilham Pesci, Nicole Mace, and you all have 3-year, 2-year, and the remainder of a 3-year seat, and you're all running uncontested. So we can have a conversation together about the Winooski School Board and why you are running. And we were just talking about why it is actually kind of fun to be on the school board. So we'll start. Nicole, you've been on the school board the longest, is that correct?
No.
Technically me.
Isaiah.
By 1 month.
Okay, Isaiah, sorry. Isaiah, we'll start with you with kind of your opening statement, why you want to be on the school board, and why do you make a difference to the city of Winooski?
Absolutely. So for me, being on the school board has been a goal of mine pretty much my entire life, honestly. Growing up, my mom was an educator, and I knew from an early age before I decided I wanted to have kids, but once I had a kid, I wanted to join the school board of whatever district we were living in. And then when my daughter was born in 2016, I was like, cool, plugged, let's do this. I'm gonna make it happen. Found Winooski. I've been living in Winooski now for 8 years. So my daughter's 7 now, and she goes to JFK Elementary at Winooski. And being on the school board, so I'm currently on the school board, and being on the school board as of last June has really just been, I don't know, just the best experience. I've had such a fun time. And being on it just in the district that my daughter's in is a big part of it, but also I love where I live. I love Winooski so much. We are so diverse and crazy, to be honest with you. Like, there's so much happening in that little teeny town. And then the school, being in the schools, especially because it's a brand new school. We just finished our capital project about a year ago, and just being through there and learning how the kids operate and also how the staff operates and just like the camaraderie there is like really phenomenal. And the fact that we're so focused on becoming an anti-racist school is just really like, that's what hits home for me. So,
Great.
yeah.
Thanks, Isaiah. And so, tell us why you want to be on the school board for another 2 years. You're currently on the school board? No, you're not currently on the school board. So you're brand new.
Yeah, I'm a new.
And why what will be different for the city of Winooski with you on the school board?
For me, the reason I'm joining is because I've always wanted to know how the school was run. Because my kids, they go to school as a new American, and I really don't understand the American school system. So I really just want to know, get the knowledge of it. And but since I had like a little language barrier, I didn't know like if I really wanted to join or how big it is of a task or a job it is. So they were looking for, a new member to join, and we were in the interview process, and she got elected. And then we met at a gathering, and she asked me to be her budget buddy. So I said yes.
Cool. Great.
Yes. So, and being a parent, I really wanted to in multicultural. I wanted to see somebody else on the board who is multicultural, not just like American. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to join also.
Great. Bring your perspective. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And Nicole, tell us about why you're running again to finish this 3-year seat.
So I was appointed to fill a vacancy, which is why it's the remainder of a 3-year seat. And like Isaiah, I love the community of Winooski. I've lived there for about 15 years. And I feel like the combination of my professional experience. I was the executive director of the Vermont School Boards Association for quite a while, and have a pretty in-depth knowledge of the education funding system and sort of the role of a school board and how to effectively govern a school in order to achieve results. So, and I also had the privilege of serving as the school district's finance director for a few years. I've since transitioned to a different role, but I feel like I have a unique perspective of having been an administrator in the school district, really understanding how the school works, but also understanding how the board can support the great work that's happening and continue to move the needle in terms of outcomes for students and support from our community.
Yeah.
Great. I'd love to get into that a little bit more, just like what is the role, how does the school board function and the role of the school board, and how do you impact the day-to-day functioning? I mean, one of the big parts is being part of setting the school year's budget, and so we're going to get to the question of the school budget and how you support or not this year's school budget. It looks like $31.97 million. I don't know what that translates into in terms of a percentage increase for Winooski. And we're going to start with you, Alum, because we kind of go around in the circle and you're the next in line. I'm just going to move your mic while you're
Okay,
so
sure.
Go ahead, yeah.
For me,
Yeah, you keep going. Yeah. How do you support the school budget and why?
for me, being a budget buddy, I got to learn how the process behind the scene of selecting the right budget for the school, and I support it because they focus really on like not raising too much tax for the Winooski residents, and also to support the school at the same time. So that's why I support it.
What is the increase? What is the percentage increase for Winooski going to be? Do you?
So the budget increase is 26%, but because of the changes to the education funding formula that were designed to direct more resources to districts with students who have higher needs, we're projecting a tax rate decrease. We're also happen to be in a reappraisal year, so we can't necessarily translate the tax rate to a tax bill because folks' home values are likely going to increase substantially. But like Aloma, I support this budget because I do think it balances both the need for critical investments that were intended by the new funding formula. We're expanding pre-K into 4 classrooms, full day pre-K, all 4-year-olds will be eligible to be served in Winooski in the program, and also retaining a lot of positions in our multilingual department that had been added with ESSER funds that of course are going away, and so really being able to retain and expand in some cases those critical positions, while at the same time being able to present a budget that has a projected tax rate decrease. Feels pretty good.
Yeah. So, and I would love to explain that to me like I'm in pre-K, right?
Yeah.
So Isaiah, you're nodding about the tax increase, but the tax rate decrease.
Yeah. So
Do you support the school budget?
I'm
And
in
what are you
complete
excited
support
about
of
it?
in complete support of the budget. It's like Nicole was saying, it's a weird year for Winooski itself because we haven't done a reassessment on properties since 2007. So that's kind of crazy. So a lot of folks are, they don't know what their house value is, quote unquote, to the town's assessor, which they'll learn early June, hopefully. And then July 1 is when that switch happens. But with the tax rate decrease, I hope that'll bring some reprieve for sure. It's definitely going to bring reprieve for income-focused tax bills, so that we can say, yes, your tax bill will go down if you're income-based. If it's purely just on your value of your home, we can't really tell you where it's going to go because your house value will increase for sure because the times we're in. In terms of the budget itself, I'd say what I'm most excited about is the preschool. So the fact that we can offer ahead of the laws for the state, 1 fiscal year ahead of offering 4 full classrooms, 5 days a week, full day, is amazing.
Yeah.
As a dad who had to seek other preschools when my kid was in preschool age, I just think that's an amazing thing. You know, I wish that my daughter went to Winooski preschool, but it just didn't fit my schedule, to be honest with you.
So that must have been built into the planning of the new school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we built 4
Yeah,
classrooms.
built-
Yeah.
Yeah, built these classrooms
Yeah.
in. And maybe one of you just can give me that, like, explain what's going on to me. There's a new legislation that that lifted the cap on education funding. Give it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
So, as I mentioned, the law that was designed to direct more resources to students who have higher learning needs, recognizing that full implementation of that change would have a negative impact on some districts. The legislature 2 years ago instituted a 5% cap for districts that were sort of the losers under the law. And as this budget season played out, it became clear that some districts were, the education spending was increasing substantially, and some districts who were benefiting from that cap saw pretty significant increases in their budget, and it sort of disrupted the relationship between your spending increase and your tax rate. And so the change that the legislature made is intended to more closely align the loss in pupils with a tax rate, but not totally insulate folks from the decisions of the budget process. Winooski supports the law that the governor signed today, I think, because the impact of increased education spending with no ability to raise tax revenue from those districts protected by the cap would mean that our tax rates would have to go up. And it sort of flipped the whole purpose of the law on its head. So we're supportive of this tweak to correct, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of what you're saying with pupils, you know, like the new formula is called weighted long-term membership. And, you know, Winooski itself, you know, that formula goes into how much it costs to educate said student, right? Yeah. Depending on age, what grade they're in, if they're living in poverty, if they're multilingual learners, you know, there's a whole algorithm that they put together, and each student equals a percentile, if you will. Yeah. And so a big chunk of our students in our district are really 2.5 kids. That's how much it costs to educate them the right way. Yeah. So that's, you know, we benefit from that for sure, because we have a lot of extra things that we need so we can supply for our community that we have.
Great. Thanks for that. I know that it gets complicated, and I'm sure it gets complicated for all of us to try to figure out. And brings us to the next question of challenges. What's the biggest challenge facing Winooski schools in your mind? And how would you use your seat on the school board to address this particular issue?
Yeah.
I'm going to start.
You want me to go?
Okay.
Nicole.
Yeah. Cool.
I think. So I think there's external challenges and then internal challenges. And the external challenge that we've talked about quite a bit as a board is housing. And we're seeing a housing crisis impacting all of Vermont, but in particular impacting families in Winooski who are being displaced by landlords raising rent, by the conversion of rental apartments into, long-term rental apartments into short-term rental apartments. And the fact is, the new housing stock that's being built is not large enough for to house the families that live in Winooski. And so we're concerned as a board about the disruption to students and also just the displacement of families who have a really close connection to the school district and have come to rely on the supports that the school district provides. So we adopted a resolution on housing a couple months ago, and I think we all are committed to continuing to advocate for housing policies that support family housing. Internally, I think our biggest challenge, and it's again something I think we can work on as a board, is measuring how well we're meeting our end statement or our our objectives that we have as a school district to make sure students are college and career ready. And I think there's a lot of, that's a hard thing to do, to come up with how are we going to measure that. But I think in the absence of some clear metrics and some benchmarks and progress monitoring, we asking community members to make a big investment in our schools, and I want to be able to say, not only are we producing results, but we're producing equitable results.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah. For me, I'd say the biggest internal struggle that I see, and that's something that I'm definitely putting in a huge focus on while I'm on school board, and Nicole and I have talked about it a bunch, is just overall enrollment. So over the next 5 years, we're projected to see a decrease in enrollment for students in terms, and that leans onto the housing, right? These are all connected items. And we're projected to see a loss in enrollment for amount of kids. And I really want to focus on how do we get more students, right? How do we make sure that we can house those students in that way? Something that is in our mind is we have these amazing facilities, we have this amazing multilingual program. What students from other districts potentially aren't getting what they need at their district, and how can we potentially bring them to our district? So we've chatted about that a little bit.
What is the status of that? What is the status of exchange students moving from Winooski, Burlington, South Burlington right now?
The status in...
Like how many students move around district to district?
Didn't we just do it? We did the
We
policy
did. Sorry.
change. So I think we've got 4 students going out, going out, and 3 coming in.
3 coming in,
Okay.
Yeah.
We set a new cap for a policy,
Yep.
but that's a low number.
Yep.
Where we have a high cap and we're really only using a small percentile of that.
Yeah.
And I really want to see what can we do to get more folks in,
Yeah.
and then what can we do in the future to potentially change that to make it even more fruitful for the school. So that's my measure on like what I think is the biggest internal struggle.
Yeah.
Externally, I mean, I'm gonna, lean on what Nicole said. Housing is a big issue. I mean, that's what my life is literally about. I'm a realtor. I help people buy and sell homes, and it's a huge focus for me, to change people's lives in that sense, like get them a house that they can afford or have a place that they can live in that does suit their needs in terms of families.
Yep.
And Nicole was saying family size homes because we're seeing tons of units being built that are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
It's not a family. You can't live there. Like if you have 4 kids, 5 kids, and especially in our community, how diverse it is, we have a lot of families that have large families. And
Multi-generational families.
exactly, yeah, 100%. And like that's a huge pinpoint for me too, in what I do in my job, but also just me as a community member for sure.
Alum, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing Winooski schools? And how do you want to use your seat to address this?
For me, I want to see the biggest challenge is for getting the students ready for outside of school when they finish high school to be college ready and like life ready.
Yeah.
I know we have like educational readiness and parental readiness, but I feel the school has a bigger role to play in their life and the education they receive. So they need to, I want to see like the right education to be given to them.
Yeah.
To have them prepare for financial, having the knowledge to mathematics, to write essays, to be able to know how to take tests or quizzes, because college is different than high school. You have to be sitting in a classroom and taking notes on your own and try to figure things on your own. It's not like high school where everything is a little bit easy. So I just want to have them to be strong and ready-minded and have the knowledge to face the outside world when they go out there on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That brings me, that's a good segue into neurodivergent students. So this is the question, how can Winooski schools best support neurodivergent students? And Isaiah, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what neurodivergent means.
generally it means people who think and process the world in different ways.
Oh.
And so
everyone.
everyone, but there's a sort of strong feeling that
yeah.
school is built for a particular
For
kind
sure.
of student learner.
Yeah.
And we recognize, right, with mental health challenges, especially a group of students, that, really we changed how we understood student learning through COVID.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just to speak on neurodivergent, learning in the Winooski School District, I'd say we are killing it. If I'm being really honest with you, we have so many different. There's a whole department for that, and we have sensory rooms within each school, because there's 3 schools: the elementary, the middle, and the high. And I've walked through those sensory rooms, and they're amazing. Like, they have different situations for students for every different type of person. Like a lot of all the tables that I've seen on the elementary side, which I love, and in the sensory rooms, every single table is a whiteboard table. They have these really cool chairs that some kids need to sit in that aren't just a normal standard chair like we're sitting in right today, and that now everyone has the ability to even just sit in a chair like that. And then in terms of what some other facilitators are doing in the school, it's just we have a lot of support staff that are really focused on maybe an individual or a couple individual students and really harnessing towards their learning needs. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, I still have a lot to learn about the school. My daughter's in 1st grade, and I've only been on the board since June.
Yeah.
And what I've taken in has been a lot, and this next 3-year seat that I am looking forward to is like another 3 years of learning, and I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
Thanks. Alum, do you have thoughts on this?
For me, I think they need to. For me, I have a strong belief in Montessori type of learning environment to have, especially for elementary students, because they're learning the beginning, the life, and I think if they have a sort of Montessori environment in the classroom, so each child can figure out what works for them.
Yeah, like a multi-learning.
Yes,
Yeah.
multi-learning. Not just studying like, okay, you gotta learn your ABC, your numbers. Not everybody's gonna have that focus. So they need to have more teachers, more training on, like maybe some kids with more difficult challenges. They should have teachers to focus on those children, so they're not all mixed in the same classroom. So that's, for me, I think that's what they need. I need to see, change.
Really cool.
This is, I think, where I'm a little bit, I benefit from having worked in the school district for a few years. And I do think the new building and the new spaces are going to serve us really well in terms of better meeting the needs of neurodivergent students. Because we have sensory, before we used to have to deliver therapeutic services, counseling services in closets, or out in the hallway, or it was not a space, we did not have a space conducive to supporting a diverse array of student needs, or to have, we contract with, the Howard Center, outside groups to come and provide therapeutic supports, and there's no space. So I do think that, and I also think we have a commitment to a comprehensive system of supports for students, to really have teachers looking at what are each student's strengths. One of the things this budget will do is create more planning time for teachers. And we also, at the school board meeting last week, gave the green light to a later start time for the school day, so that teachers can meet as professional learning communities to really start to look at data and make a plan around each child. And I think that
which would feed into what Nicole was saying earlier, when how are we going to track and have the metrics of
how we're doing.
College
Right.
ready, right? How are we doing? So that's going to help that metric.
Teachers will have more time. We can't ask for data if teachers don't have time to look at
Exactly.
data and make sense of it and do something about it.
So that's a concrete way, and maybe just talk about that late start time. What does that mean? And this is I'm trying to think of how does the board get involved in a way, because you're not micromanaging
Right.
what's happening in the school or how teachers are working with students, et cetera, but you're really providing a space. You're providing the supports that they need to be able to do that work. Talk about the late start time, and then how does the board get involved on this?
Yeah, I'll chime in right away. So, I mean, currently our start time is 8 a.m.
Okay.
We're pushing it to 8:15.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like a drastic difference, but I hope it's going to make a difference. And it's not like we're extending our day another 15 minutes. We're just shortening the day 15 minutes, quote unquote, for the students. And in terms of kind of what we do in terms of how we manage the school, right? Really, our employee is the superintendent, obviously, and we're policy governance. That's how our board operates. And every board meeting that we have, our superintendent gives us a monitoring report, and we review that monitoring report, and check compliance and see what really the school's been up to, how things are going. And I think we're very blessed to have the superintendent that we have. Wilmer Chavarria is phenomenal. He's an amazing person, but also really amazing at what he does. And he makes things more digestible and easier to read. So his formatting and the way he's presenting it to us is
Digestible.
yeah, digestible. That's the right word. So that's kind of how we, on a monthly basis, you would say, quote unquote, manage the school, if you will, through the eyes of the superintendent. And then myself, I am also the secretary clerk for the board. So, I mean, I'm kind of more involved on a weekly basis, if you will. So I go in once a week to check the payoffs and where money's going. And I love it.
Cool.
And I'm doing it line by line. Like Nicole asked me a couple months ago, like, do you actually read these? And I'm like, yeah, I found a mistake a couple months ago.
Great.
And it's cool. So like me knowing where money's going and understanding it and like, oh, I see you missed something,
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to be a part of that in that
Yeah.
sense.
Great. Our next question is on public safety. A lot out there about police presence in schools, guns, weapons in schools, safety, public safety as a whole issue. So in your role on the board, how do you think the school district is best ensuring the safety of students and teachers in our school and the community?
Is it me?
Yes, we're going to start with you,
I
Nicole.
think you're going to have the right, 'cause you were
Right,
involved
so, yeah.
during that process
Yes.
of our change.
Right. So, first of all, I would say in general, I think the Winooski schools are very safe and welcoming. We have had an agreement with the city of Winooski for a school resource officer to be sort of 100%, not 100%, but spend a lot of the school day in the school. And there was some community conversation about the appropriateness of that several years ago. And there was a public facilitated dialogue that led to a set of recommendations for how the school district could move away from having a police presence in the school to having a safety officer. And they looked at several models around the country where that was successful. And so for the FY25 budget, we're moving to a school safety liaison position, which is not a law enforcement position. And the police department will continue to serve as have an officer who is a liaison to the district, but won't be on site, be more of a support or role, which I think is the direction that the community really supports. We also have, I think, a pretty high functioning safety committee who's taken its responsibilities around emergency planning, conducting drills in response to, there were a number of new requirements passed by the legislature last year. So I think we're feeling pretty good about both continuing to staff school safety, but doing so without a law enforcement presence on the school, because that's the decision and the direction the community wanted.
Yeah. Can I chime in on safety
Absolutely,
real quick?
please, yeah.
So
We're going to go all the way around.
Yeah. So I'm involved with the ARSC, which is the Anti-Racism Steering Committee. So
Okay.
that's something I do as a board member. And we meet every other week, but something that just got implemented, and we're currently reviewing the results and the data of this. So we just implemented this survey made from the students of the ARSC. We have about 37 students in that committee and about 7 adults. So it's student run.
Yeah.
And it was initially started in 2020 by students, which is amazing. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. But this new survey that we just released is the students, we made up this list of questions, about 30 questions, whatever, really related towards how each student feels in the school. You know, whether it's based on safety, just having someone to talk to, you know, feeling comfortable, but then we kind of also tied it in with the city itself, comparing how do they feel in the school versus how do they feel just in the community.
Yeah.
So I don't have results of that yet, because we just finished that, and we're going to go over that in the next couple of weeks. So I love that you brought up safety, because that was a big topic with the ARSE, and we're trying to do a big push. And how can we adjust as a committee to really tone to what the students maybe aren't getting that they should be getting, and hear their voice more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with exactly what he said, because honestly, they're going to be there for the students and the faculties. So I think they need to have the students say in the decision making of if they want the officer or safety person to be there, and have parents also, like they should have a little gathering or meeting to discuss. And parents really need to show up, because sometimes we have community events to discuss and parents don't show up, and it's really disappointing. So parents really need to, I want to see more parents get involved, because they do supply interpretation.
Yeah.
So I want to see more parents get involved in decision making for their student or the children's safety at the school, and get the students input in making the decision.
Yeah. I mean, safety has it's a big term, and we sort of tend to think of it narrowly relating to police. But the way you're talking about in the survey, it sounds like the survey is talking about the bigger idea of safety. Do you feel like you belong?
Yep.
Do you feel like you're going to be listened to? Do you feel like you're going to have an impact?
Yeah. The social, mental aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Interesting. So great. On that, I'm going to do, sorry, Jordan, I'm going to switch really quickly just to follow up on alum's position here about the language access question, which is how can the Winooski School District meet the needs of students and families whose primary language is not English? Because you mentioned that in your thing, and do you want to start on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so for me, I think Nicole and I was discussing, and she said that they have some kind of program where they were teaching the parents English and also the students. So, because for me, I have also struggled with being English as my third language, and trying to teach my kids our native language, and it's been tough to teach them my native language. So English is always just like just coming out of nowhere. So I think we need to really focus on that, so the kids don't lose, their native language, and also be fluent in English at the same time.
It's awesome. I mean, because immediately I read this and I think like interpretation and supporting people, and the way that you're coming at it is support families to maintain their own cultural heritage and their own languages.
Yeah, because even the students, when they hang out with their friends, they end up speaking English instead of their native language, and they tend to lose it. Like for me, I was fluent in French when I came here, but I have to learn English, and I didn't have anybody speaking French with me, so I kind of lost it a little bit. So yeah, we need to work on that a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. And Nicole?
We hear from families a lot about concern, especially, Ilum's English is fantastic, and there are some families whose English, they really struggle to communicate at all with their students. So it's both a loss of sort of the cultural identity for the next generation, but also a real barrier in terms of just communicating between parents and children, and between parents and the school. And so the program Ilum was referring to is we call the Heritage Language Program. So the Winooski School District has been providing interpretation services for years, but what has been new in the last couple of years is hearing from families saying, actually, we need help we need our children to speak our language. And so that piloted with a grant, and it's being run as an after-school program right now. But I do think it's really important that we're balancing the drive to sort of acclimate to our educational system and our dominant language with the need to preserve folks' identities and the connections that they have, not just to their parents, but to other generations within their families.
Great. And Isaiah, do you have more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, not in terms of that, but like something that the district does do that I loved. Nicole and I did our first really budget presentation months ago, and we invited community members to come out, and what the school provides is interpreters. So headphones that they're wearing while we're live presenting, speaking English, but then it's in real time interpreting it into their native language, which is amazing. And I kind of leaned it on when I went to school. I'm 33, so I haven't been in high school for a long time, but I can tell you right now, Saugerties High School in New York definitely would have never done that, back then. I don't know where they're at today, but that to me is just such a cool shift to say, great, like you're a community member, come to our school, let's talk about this, and we're gonna make sure you understand it and not just be, speaking gibberish, because English could come as gibberish.
Yeah, and it requires a whole new presentation style, right? Like
we
you
learned a lot of new
You have to learn to
skills.
pause
Yeah, we learned a lot of new
to allow
skills.
for that translation. So, but yeah,
And so,
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was good. It looked like the summit when the presidents go to a different country
Yeah.
and they wear those.
UN, yeah. Cool.
That's what it looked like.
Well, and also that same pause, like when we try to meet the needs of the many, I think we end up meeting needs that we didn't even know we had. And so that impact, the potential impact of students who are born speaking English in the United States to be able to hear other languages and to be
Yeah.
able to learn more quickly other languages is
Yeah.
also pretty amazing. And also it's good for everybody to slow down when
Right.
you're talking about the budget. Of
course.
We're going to lose most of us in that process.
I'd say it's good for us.
Confusing.
I'd say it's good for all of us to slow down, just in general.
Yeah.
We live in such a high, fast-paced society, and
Yeah.
it's, I've learned in my adulthood to just slow down a little bit and really make sure that you're making the right connection with the person who's right in front of you. It's so easy to just get distracted, look at your phone, or look at the things that are crossing right by you, but it's like, no, let's focus on literally what's in front of me.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go back to the measuring success question on that. 'Cause that's where our world speeds up a little bit, the data. So last year's standardized test results suggest that the proportion of Vermont students proficient in math and English, and that means doing okay, right, decreased during the pandemic and has not made significant improvements since. Is this true? I guess one is this true of Winooski, and how do you measure the success of the school district? Is this a decent way to measure success? There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll start with Isaiah on this.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm correct, I believe the test scores were lower than the state average.
yes.
Correct, cool. Looking at Nicole because we looked at the sheet together. So based off of what you just put up there,
This is in math and English.
math and English, yep.
Yeah.
So the test results for Winooski Seal District were much lower than the state's average in terms of the testing. Do I personally think it's a right way to measure things? No, I don't. Because like we said before, every single human is different. We all learn different ways. When I was asking you what neurodivergent meant, I didn't know, but you told me and I learned. But like that, when you said the example, I'm like, that's everyone.
Yeah.
Because we all learn so differently. We're all so different. And I personally don't think standardized tests really give you true results of where that particular student really is. And aside from just maybe they know the answers, but let's say they have test stress. We all, portray our knowledge in such a different way. And I just think tests personally, I know we have to measure things and I know we have to have those results, but I feel like at some point we got to figure out a different way to
So how do you
gauge those
So that's
things.
the thing. How do you measure the success of the school district? What would be
I mean, how do
one of
we
your
current?
favorite? Well, what would
Yeah.
be one of your favorite metrics?
If I'm being honest, I mean, I'm still learning all this stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
I know with the middle high school, they've changed the whole grading system and the way students are marked, essentially. And I know they were going through a big change over the last few years for that implementation. I'm still learning a lot about it. We had one of the school counselors sit in on one of our board meetings a few months ago, and they kind of talked about when they made that switch for students that were graduating, and the college, when they were talking to the college counselors to understand the grading system, even some of the colleges were like, how do you explain this to us, right? But then a lot of them were like, oh, this makes way more sense than a 65%, 85% scores, and it's kind of cool to see that, and I really am eager to learn more. Specifically from Gene, who's one of the co-principals of the middle high school, and he really kind of talked about that more, a lot in depth during that meeting, and I personally want to learn more about that.
Yep.
An alum, how do you want to measure the success of the school district? What's your vision? And if you want to speak to the standardized test results in Winooski.
I don't know much about
Yeah.
the results, but for me, I remember when I used to go to high school, there used to be A, B, C, and D
Yeah.
grades, or minus A. So,
Yeah.
for my kids, they they send home their report. I'm like, I don't get this 3 point, 2
It's on a
point,
4-point scale, yeah.
It's a number I really don't understand it. So I really want to learn more about how we can have a better understanding of the grade results.
So you think there's more that can be done to help families understand
Yes.
this particular grading
Yes.
system? What would tell you that Winooski school districts are doing a good job?
I think having the test for each grade on a certain, like you say, math and English, I think is really important to see where students are
Yeah.
on the level.
Yeah.
Because there's a different, English as second language, they might not do well on those. So if they test them, they'll see where they are so they can help them achieve and get better.
Yeah. So a measure of success might be that you're measuring and then responding and fixing or changing. Yeah. And Nicole, for you, how do you see what's going to tell you Winooski's doing well?
So I talked about this earlier. I do think, we're a pretty new board.
Very new.
So with a brand new superintendent, and I think we have a great opportunity to really clearly define the metrics that we use. And I agree with Isaiah in the sense that standardized tests is not the only way that we can measure student success. I do think it's an important metric because it does compare our results to other schools and students across the state. I know we have local assessments that we use, like the STAR reading assessment and some other math tools that teachers really have. It's more connected to the teaching that's happening in the classroom and the curriculum that we have. So I think those are important for us to see. And I agree with Ilom. For me, it's more about growth as opposed to you've met a target or you haven't met a target. It's how are we moving students to increase their proficiency. And then I think health and well-being is also important, that you can't get off of a standardized test. And surveys like the one Isaiah talked about could be an important tool that we use. There's like school climate surveys. There's other ways that we can get at that question of, do students feel a sense of belonging? Do they feel valued? So I think that's the work ahead for this board to really figure that out.
Great. Thank you all for joining us here today and speaking directly to voters in the city of Winooski. Any last closing comments for folks? Get out on March 5th, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for having us. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
March 5th, come, just vote. At the end of the day, it's like, we all live in that town. We all love it. And even if you don't, still vote, because you have a voice and you should use that voice.
Great.
So that's where I'm at.
Thanks.
There is a budget presentation on March 4th. We also did one here.
Yep.
So not only vote, but get the information you need in order to cast your vote.
Yeah. Yeah. We will
education.
be live streaming that budget presentation, I think. Maybe Jordan can give me a thumbs up on that. No,
No.
we're not doing the live stream.
But we have
We do
recorded
have
it here.
recording, so thank
yes.
you for tuning in to ongoing coverage of town meeting TV forums. You can watch this and other forums repeats at cctv.org/2024 or again on youtube.com/townmeetingtv. And don't forget to vote. Either you can walk in now to the clerk's office and vote, or you can vote on March 5th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we will be doing our local election results show here as well. So tune in at 7 o'clock on March 5th, and we'll bring you the numbers as they roll in. So thanks for watching.